Welcome to Nevertheless, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you will discover how to discern your essence and live powerful.
Hello and welcome to Nevertheless, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. How are you doing? It's February already. Time flies. I'm thinking that in a twinkle of an eye we will be in December again, and then it will be 2017. I hope you're making the best of this year, because if you don't, you would have nobody but yourself to blame. But really, I have all the confidence in the world in you, and I know that you are making the best of every day, every minute, every second of 2016. Well, from experience, I'll tell you that there is so much that I really want to get to do this year. And in this last 1 month, I'm proud to say that there is so much I have done, but there's still so much that I am yet to do, which is why I am not done with the series on goal setting. We have this last piece today. But before we go into today's piece, let me ask you, how did you do with the accountability effect? Everyone, like I said, needs an accountability partner. But beyond needing an accountability partner, everyone needs to be accountable for something that God has put inside of them. Did you take a look, or did you listen to the steps on the kind of person that you should pick for your accountability partner? If it did help you, please send me a message. I'd like to hear how you're going. I got a message that said that some people have not even set their goals, and January is already over. We're now in February, and those people are feeling like really beat. They're thinking like maybe they've missed something. Yes, you've missed 4 weeks or 5 weeks, because January had 5 weeks, but it's not the end of life. If you haven't even started at all, good for you. You can still do that. I think if you went through every post that I have put out this year, whether a blog or a podcast, you'll be able to recalibrate and put together a goal or a set of goals that you'll be proud of, and you'll be able to execute, especially because there are steps in those podcasts and blog posts that tell you what you ought to do so that you can get it done properly. So like I said, today we're going to be looking at another installment on the goal setting series. The question is, what are we talking about? But before I come back, let's hear what this is all about. I'll be right back.
Are you frustrated and tired of life? Do you feel trapped in life's maze and don't seem to find your way? Or are you passionate about your purpose and destiny and want to find out more? Then get a copy of DNA. DNA, Destiny Navigational Application, is a book written by Bidemi Mark-Mordi, where she coaches you to distill the answer to the cry of purpose, mandate, and significance. She teaches you how to discern your essence, discover your God-given mandate, deploy power, and demonstrate dominion. Get a copy of Destiny Navigational Application from any bookstore near you, or call 234-813-360-2883, or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order now.
Welcome back. It's still Nevertheless, the show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi, like I said, and exciting things are happening at Visiting Communications where I work, and we'll be sharing some of those things with you very soon. Just remember that a lot is cooking here, and we'll be dishing them out soon. So for those of you who are praying people, please remember to pray for us. We covet your prayers. We need all the prayers we can find. Because just as I'm doing my best here to encourage you to set goals and push through them and be accountable to them and make sure that you do the little things to compound them so that you have a great 2016, I tell you it's no different for us here. This is exactly what we're doing, or these are the things we're doing. So like I said, pray for us. I'll be grateful, and I know God will hear. On today's post, what are we going to be looking at? Today's episode is looking at the gain of reflective thinking. Because here's the thing, when you set goals, some people set goals and they have the goal list, they put it on their wall, and they don't go through the processes that help them establish the methodology with which they would actualize their goals. And so by the time it's March, April, June, May, June, if they're lucky, most people have given up on those goals. especially when they hit snags, their challenges, and it seems like it's not coming together. They begin to renege on the promises they made. They begin to cut corners, and before you know it, it's December. And by the time you take a look at their life, if they did, they find that they were exactly where they were when they started. What is the thing that makes a super achiever different from the one who just does what every other person does? These days, okay, we hear goal setting, so everybody sets a goal. But do you know the science behind goal setting? A few weeks ago, I talked about the push goal. Do you know that every goal that you set, or when you put together your list of goals, you must have a push goal? Do you know that achieving or actualizing your goals is not magic? You have to do one thing after the other, day by day, consistently to be able to achieve that. Do you know that every time it takes someone else rooting for you, holding you accountable for you to be able to push through the challenges that life will bring your way? That's just goal setting for you. Now, so what will we be looking at? I said we'll be looking at the gain of reflective thinking. Because here's the thing, if you want to make the best of your goals, or to be able to look at your goal list, whether you had 10, whether you have 5 goals, whether you have 7 goals, at the end of this year, and be able to see that you have ticked like practically every one of them, then one skill that you need to develop is what John C. Maxwell calls reflective thinking. It's something you must think about. You must reflect on your thinking. What are you thinking about? At the end of every day, most people sit down, or most reflective thinkers sit down and they think through their day. But I find that with the volume of work that I do on a daily basis, I'm unable to think in the evenings. I want to unwind in the evenings, or at the end of my day, I want to go to bed. So I do my reflective thinking at the beginning of every new day. What that means is I replay in my mind the tape of my previous day to look at what it is that I did, what did I achieve, what didn't I do well. And then I set a motion like a fast forward. I play another video of what I would like my day on that particular day to be like. Part of these things that happen on the day that I'm reflecting is that I actually begin to correct some of the mistakes from the previous day. So what is reflective thinking? Reflective thinking is the capacity to sit down and review your life, review your goals, review the things that you're doing, just so that you can get further clarity, make adjustments where necessary, so that you can go on and deliver on the things that you've been called to do. So how does that help my goal setting? Before I answer that, I want to quickly talk to you about a story that I know in the Bible for you to know that reflective thinking is as old as the beginning of time. In 1 Chronicles chapter 13 through to 15, there is the story of David. David was the king of Israel at this time, and he was the one who was in charge of making all the decisions for Israel. So David decided at some point that the Ark of the Covenant that had been taken captive for so long should be returned to Jerusalem. So he made all the arrangements, he put together the plan, and he said, the elders of Israel were going to get the Ark back. And go get the Ark they did. They got there, they picked up the Ark, they put it on a brand new cart. That's the way the Bible describes it. And they started their journey back to Jerusalem. He had people on each side of the cart, and it was a joyous ceremony for them. They were excited that they were bringing the Ark, because the Ark of the Covenant represented those days the presence of God. So it felt like because the Ark was not in Jerusalem, the presence of God was not in Jerusalem. And here was a king who was bringing this Ark back. It was exciting. So they went. But they put the Ark on the cart, and on the way, the Bible narrates that the cart toppled. And there was a young man that was right beside the cart when it was toppling over. And his name was Uzzah. So Uzzah stretched out his arm to try and steady the Ark. And the Bible said the Lord struck him dead, and Uzzah died. By the time this happened, of course, think about it, it's dramatic, it's shocking. Everybody, I'm sure, ran off, and David was left with the Ark on top of the cart right in front of Obed-Edom's house. David was so distraught that in bringing the Ark back, the first thing that has happened is someone has died. And the Bible said David was afraid because he didn't really understand what it was that went wrong. The goal was perfect. Let the Ark, which represented the presence of God, return to Jerusalem, the city of God. And here was the Ark, was killing people. So David commanded that the Ark be taken into the house of Obed-Edom, some Jewish man whose house was probably by the border. So the Ark was taken into Obed-Edom's house, and David went back to his palace. But something happened. By the time the ark got into Obed-Edom's house, the Bible said that Obed-Edom and his household started to prosper. That meant great things started to happen to Obed-Edom. And by the time David got wind of it, he started to wonder. So maybe it's not the ark that is killing people. Maybe there was something else. And it was in the place of this reflection, thinking, what happened? Why will this same ark, because Uzzah tried to steady the cart from toppling over, Uzzah dies, yet this same ark is taken into Obed-Edom's house. Obed-Edom and his household are prospering. So in taking those 2 steps back, David found out something. I think he dug into the scrolls. He started to read what exactly was the format, what was the laid down procedure for transporting the ark. And David realized that the ark was never meant to be transported on a cart. It was meant to be carried on the shoulders of some of the priests, and they had to have the priests dead, and they had to have praise singers in front and stuff like that. The Lord was very specific on the way he wanted his presence to go into any place. So David took 2 steps back and he called a meeting. He called a meeting of the elders and he said, we ought not to. If you go to 1 Chronicles 15 verse 2, it says we ought not to. What that means is I have reflected and I have realized that we made mistakes. And the Bible records that they went back the second time from Obed-Edom's house, followed the due process, and they brought the ark to Jerusalem, and things were on the up from that moment on. What did David deploy? David deployed reflective thinking. An ability to take a look at what you have done, to be sure that you are doing it correctly. Because sometimes it's not just achieving the goal that is the issue. Sometimes it is how you did it. Remember, they say the end justifies the means. What that means is the process is just as important as the results. Or let me say it in another form. The journey is just as important as the destination. Most of us go through the journey without even realizing what it is we've gone through. But what all of this is saying is you need to be able to go through the journey and be sure that you got there following the process that you ought to have followed. It's still, nevertheless, the show that is dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. I'm going to come back with a few practical things that you ought to do so that you will be able to get it right, deploying the power of reflective thinking.
In a world filled with many fears and discouragement, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life's just simple. Don't worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi shares powerful insights and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless from a bookstore near you or call 234-813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimark-mordi.com to place your order now. I guarantee you will make it nevertheless.
Thanks for hanging around. I'm back. John C. Maxwell in his book, Thinking for a Change, said that in deploying the power of reflective thinking, you ought to ask yourself 3 basic questions. Question number 1 is, what did I learn today? Question number 2 is, what should I share? And question number 3 is, what must I do? I'll take those questions again. What did I learn today? What should I share? And what must I do? Now, when you ask these questions at the beginning of a new day or at the end of a particular day, then you'll be able to play, like I said, a video or a tape of all your processes through the day. And you'll be able to say, okay, the goal today was to maybe write 5 pages in my manuscript, but I only was able to write 2. Why was I able to write 2? By the time you go through your day properly, you're probably likely to see that you had distractions. And even though they looked like at the time, just looking at them now, you realize that they are distractions. What that will do for you is if the next day you get into your writing room and those same things show up, you have already identified them for what they are. They are distractions. So you will not give them the opportunity to steal your time, because one of the biggest challenges of achieving our goals is a question of time. It looks like it just slips through our fingers, and most of the time we don't know why. So reflective thinking helps you to harness the time that you have properly so that you can use it. At the end of every school term, when my children come on holiday, I usually will ask them 2 questions. Question number 1 is, what was the favorite thing that happened to you or the best thing that happened to you during this term? And you hear them talking, oh, it was when this happened, it was when that happened. And then, I'll go on to the next question. And the next question is, what was the worst thing that happened to you in this term? Or what was the worst day of your life this last term? And you hear them say, oh, it was when that teacher said, it was when that student said. Then in the end, I ask them a final question, which is very simple. Why did you categorize that as the best day of your term and this as the worst day of your term? What am I trying to do with my children? I'm trying to teach them the power of reflective thinking. What that does is they sit down and they think through their 13 weeks actually also in school, and then they are able to say to me, oh mommy, maybe if I had done this, maybe if I had done that. Now they may not remember it 100% when they go back, but I actually think that it helps. In fact, I've seen this help in all 3 of my children's life, but more than the others, my oldest son, in the way he discusses with me this new term, for instance, the way he comes back to me on the things that he's dealing with shows me that he actually doesn't just go through a day and forget that he's going through a day. He goes through a day and he does get to think about that day. Because here's the thing, when you don't think about your day, as in intentionally think about your day, the tendency is you may not even realize that you're gaining and you're losing. That's the power of reflective thinking. Now, when you ask these questions, remember the questions again by John Maxwell. What did I learn today? What should I share? What must I do? What usually happens is your necessary adjustments that you need to make. Before I got married, the first maybe 2 years of our marriage, I had a problem with my husband, and it was simple. Every time I say to Mark, I want to do this or this, Mark will always say to me, let me think about it. And it used to really upset me. I used to think, what's there to think about? I mean, just tell me, you have an opinion, because that was me. I always had an opinion, and I had it right at that spot when whatever was. But the more he said to me, let me think about it, and sometimes it takes him all of 1 week to think about, which would drive me really crazy. But every time that he came back to me with his solution or his decision, I found out that he always made superior decisions. And that was where I started to learn the habit of saying to people, let me think about it. I'll come back to you. So 19 years later, it's one of my favorite things with my husband when he says to me, let me think about it, because I'll give him time. And when he comes back, sometimes I'll prod him 2 days later and he'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I haven't had the time to give it a thought. So these days, the idea is get thinking about it fast enough. But the thing is, every time that he takes the time to think about it, he comes back to me with a superior decision. And that for me, I will not trade with anything in the world. Because here's the power or the benefit of reflective thinking. 1, it helps you to gain perspective. When you take the time to practice reflective thinking, it helps you to gain perspective. What that means is, in thinking through your day, maybe an incident with a boss or with a colleague where there was a shouting match or there was a disagreement, or even your spouse, when you go through your reflective thinking through the day, because there's no one there with you, you are able to view the case or the issue from every angle, and you are a lot more objective because you don't feel the pressure of being judged. You don't feel the pressure of someone trying to insist on an opinion out of you. And usually when that happens, you may actually realize that, okay, maybe I was wrong. Oh no, this person should have done it this way. And that helps you to gain perspective. Because here's the thing, under the pressure of having to perform and get things done, 9 times out of 10, at least that's what happens to me, I usually will see things more than they are, or less than they are. I don't know how to say it. I'm trying to say that everything is not always as it seems. So sometimes it takes reflective thinking for you to realize, oh, that person didn't mean me harm. They were just jesting with me. Oh, that person actually meant something. I should have listened to them better. Oh, this person actually had a point. If only I had given them the room to explain themselves. And what does that do for you? It gives you perspective about the situation and the people. And when you come back the next day, the tendency is you will give them more room if you had to do it over again. So reflective thinking, one of the big gains of reflective thinking is it helps you to gain perspective. It also helps you to learn from your successes and to learn from your mistakes and to make the adjustments when it is necessary. The second thing that you will gain out of practicing reflective thinking is that it will enhance your decision making, especially when you take the time to think up front. So, for instance, I get out of bed about 3:30 a.m. and I spend the first 30 minutes thereabout thinking about my previous day, because like I told you, I'm at my best early in the mornings. So I take the time to think about my previous day. And in thinking through my previous day, I can assure you that I can see the loopholes. I can see the lapses. I can see where I wasted time when I ought not to have wasted time. I can see where I went to places where I didn't really need to go. I could just have delegated someone to go there. And based on all of these things, I project my next day. And in projecting my next day, that's when you see me whip out my notepad. I begin to put together a to-do list because I'm planning my day. And in planning my day, honestly, I look through everything that I write down that I want to do. And even before I get ready to go to work, I already know how I'm going to plug my decisions, what decisions I'm going to make, what do I need to do first, what's the next thing I should do after that, just so that I can deliver on my to-do for that day. So my point is that when you deploy reflective thinking, your decision-making process is a lot more enhanced because you are able to consider the options that are available to you. You are able to look at your positions properly. You are able to appraise the resources that are available to you so that you make an informed decision. See, I don't believe in just making decisions. Decisions are decisions, I know, but informed decisions are much more powerful. So when you practice reflective thinking, you make enhanced decisions and you are also able to take responsibility when you're clearly at fault. Now, when you think through the decision process, here's what happens for me. I'm able to stand by my decision no matter who doesn't like it because I took time to think through my decision before I made it. And people who don't understand will think, oh, this woman is very rigid. No, I'm not rigid. It's just that I have taken time to reflect before I made the decision. I had considered so many things before my decision is made. So based on that decision that I had looked at everything around in my atmosphere before I made, you don't just come to me and you expect that I will change that decision on a whim. It doesn't happen like that. The third gain of reflective thinking is that it births clarity in you. It births clarity. What that means is, the more you look at the picture of your previous day, or look at the picture of your day at the end of your day, you begin to discover the patterns. You begin to discover the lapses. You begin to discover the loopholes. And based on all of those things, you make the right decision. You gain clarity about what you're doing. And then tomorrow, when you're faced with similar situations, you are able to do better than you did the previous day. You gain clarity. Sometimes you set a goal for the year. In 2014, I set a goal that I wanted to add a particular piece to my business. At the point I was setting the goal, it felt like a really nice goal to set. But by the time I was 6 weeks into the new year, I started to realize that I needed to reflect more on that particular goal. And the more I reflected, the more I spoke to other people, the more I realized that it wasn't a business piece that I wanted to take on at that time. So when at the end of 2014, I did not take it as done, I didn't feel like I was a failure because reflective thinking had made me realize that with a lot more clearer mindset that it wasn't what I should be doing for my business at that point. So when you deploy reflective thinking, it births clarity in you. The fourth gain of reflective thinking is it helps you enjoy the process, even when it may be uncomfortable. This year, like I said, there's so much that I'm doing personally, both in business and in ministry, that every other person that hears the things I'm doing is like, whoa, it's too much. You are doing a lot. And I agree, it's a lot that I'm doing. But the truth of the matter is, as difficult as it seems, and it actually is, it's a lot that I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying the process because the process itself is helping me grow. I'm getting into places that I didn't realize I could get into. I'm stretching myself beyond points that I thought before would break me. And that for me counts a lot because I am committed to steady growth in my life. So when you deploy reflective thinking, it helps you to enjoy the process. Like when I woke up this morning, there were so many things I wanted to do. So I just thought it through my day. And as many as they looked on my notepad, by the time it was noon, I had almost finished doing them. Why? Because thinking through them at the top of my day helped me delegate to the right people, block the channels that I needed to block. And wow, my productivity is higher. Even though I know that my performance is not at peak because I'm a little bit under the weather from a cold. But I still got the things that I needed done. All because I thought it through in the morning and I wrote them down. So how do you deploy reflective thinking? That's the last piece of our show today. One, you need to set time aside to think. I said to you earlier that I do mine from about 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's because that's my most productive time. I'm mentally more alert and stronger at that time of the day. But there are other times when I actually do my reflective thinking in the car. Especially when I'm driving long distances and I don't have a driver with me. If I'm the only one in the car, you'll be amazed at the things that I turn up just thinking by myself in the car. So you need to set time aside for your reflective thinking. The second thing you want to do on how to do it is you need to review your goals and processes. When you come to the time and the place you set aside for your reflective thinking, review your goals and your processes prior to that time. You can take them a day before, you can take them 1 week at a time, you can take them 2 weeks at a time. It depends on what works for you. I like a day at a time. Remember last week I told you I'm that person who likes my meat in bits so that I can get there on time. I get there not feeling overwhelmed. So you want to make sure that you get into that place, reviewing your goals and your processes. That means you have a paper and you have a pen. And I'm not talking about scraps of paper. I mean, get a notebook, get a jotter, get a journal, and make sure that everything goes there. So for all of January, if you want to see how I have planned, I have one exercise book or one jotter that will take you through everything that I have done in January. The third how is when you find out what it is, quickly make adjustments on paper so that you can follow through. What did I say? I said quickly make adjustments on paper first. That is, make a notation of what it is that you have realized were not properly done or were overly done, whatever. Wherever you need adjustments, write them down so that you can now put a plan to the new things you've put down. My name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi, and we've been looking at the gains of reflective thinking. This is our last installment in the goal setting series, where I'm taking you through how a goal becomes a powerful goal. I do hope this has helped you. Remember what I always say to you. Until you discover purpose, you cannot live powerful. So, discover purpose and live powerful. Till next week, and I'll come your way again. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 0813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com. Don't forget that when you discover your purpose, you will live powerful.